Welcome to Panels, a series of conversations hosted by Modem about our complex relationship with technology. My name is Emily Segal, moderator of the series. Today, we explore the topic of synthetic ecologies. A few of the questions we will discuss today include: what does the design practice of tomorrow look like in an age of synthetic ecologies? Are we talking about labs, servers, fermentation tanks, game engines, or something entirely different? Are we still drawing from nature or designing entirely new natures from code and simulations? Can designers shift from shaping objects to curating systems that evolve and behave almost like living things? We will explore these and other questions together with Ross Lovegrove, designer and sculptor of technology, and Ada Sokół, artist and designer. Some background. Ross Lovegrove is a forward-thinking designer and artist known for sculpting the future through organic minimalism and advanced engineering. His works, ranging from furniture to transportation, are held in permanent collections at MoMA, the V&A, and the Centre Pompidou. With a career rooted in design innovation for Apple, Sony, and Vitra, Lovegrove continues to challenge conventions with his biomorphic design language. At the core of his practice lies a deep reverence for nature, fused with cutting-edge technology and visionary aesthetics. Ada Sokół is a 3D artist and designer. Her unique visual language consists of sensual, photorealistic, and delicate works. Subtlety, femininity, and magic. These keywords accurately describe her aesthetic. She creates an ultra-sensory experience based on dreamlike scenery resembling visions of the far future, offering a glimpse into the artist's perspective on the beauty surrounding us. The main inspirations for her renders are creatures and natural phenomena that ignite her imagination: water bears, sea dragons, orchids, and fungi. As a self-taught designer and young woman of Eastern European roots, Ada quickly carved her path to embody a solid self-made 3D brand. During years spent in Paris and London, her unique style developed while collaborating with global brands such as Prada, Nike, Apple, Louis Vuitton, Valentino Romova, and Gentle Monster on campaigns, videos, and multimedia installations. Welcome, Ross and Ada. We're so happy to have you here. And I believe right before we started our formal recording, you organically were talking about one another's work. And since today we're talking about the organic and the synthetic, I would love to just jump right back into that conversation, and I'll hand it over to you, Ada.
Okay, thank you so much, Emily. I just wanted to say that actually I've been reading K-Hole 11 years ago or 10 years ago, and it had huge influence on my works. Back then, it was like a Bible of coolness, so I was extremely happy to be introduced to you even now. And Ross, I think your bottle design that was designed, I think, 24 years ago. And the Go chair was one of my part of my mood board on Tumblr. And I've been building kind of my aesthetics, and Bas actually introduced me to your works because I'm sorry to say that I need to guilty and charged, but I need to admit that I never knew who designed those, but they've been part of mood boards and in general, my aesthetics. So yeah, I'm so honored to talk with both of you.
Well, that's from my deep past, all that. But it's kind of interesting that they recur, you know. It means that something... I've been working with the Go Chair recently on a project, a space program in the US, redeveloping it with particular astronauts and so on, looking at how I can kind of reconfigure it, using it as a host. I think there are certain things that you do throughout your career which they are just, they're so nicely cooked that they last the test of time. And I don't mean that in a retrospective way at all. I don't mean that in a kind of nostalgic retrospective way. I think there are things that just are created which kind of hang there, and they're such a microcosm that they last without even talking about them lasting. I mean, from time to time, I look at doing a new book, and when I lay things out, it's very hard to know actually what date my things come from. Right? And I think that's a really interesting positioning. And that's why even today, the nature of this conversation is absolutely fantastic, because things have evolved so rapidly. How does one hang on to those core principles, that allow you to design? Try and find the key on everything that you do, which is that sort of instantaneous flash of its origin or meaning, and that will keep it not relevant, but kind of almost beyond relevance, in the sense that it can influence and affect other things and other generations. You can use your own work as a kind of, especially when we look at sort of new language models and so on. If you've got a body of work, those models will give you more of yourself. It's a fascinating time we live in, and my work is very, you can touch it. It's tactile. It's solid. But I don't begin that way. I begin quite the opposite. So looking at what you do, Ada, I'm fascinated by this what I'd always say is strangeness is a consequence of innovative thinking. And if you're too close to a commercial multiplicity and outreach, you can't be strange. It's the Apple iPhone type geometry, if you see what I mean. If you want to pursue greater geometry, I think you have to delve into the virtual, into the weird, into the glitch, into the mutation. And then it's up to us to decide whether that's real or not.
Yeah, it's kind of uncanny.
So I see that in your work. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Ada, I'd love to hear about how you think about any of those topics, like relevance, normalcy, weirdness, how things are changing in your own work.
Yeah. So I think they're like based for me, or core, because when I started to do 3D, I just been playing. I never thought I will build a career out of it. And actually, the hardest thing in 3D is to mimic nature in real sense. So I've been trying to build something uncanny, like on the verge of real and completely abstract. And then I got really into creating my own species, or like playing with colors of it, with shapes. And this is the most interesting thing for me that we can do in the digital. Right now, also AI is starting to give those possibilities, but 3D back then, when I'd been starting, was perfect medium for that. So yeah, strangeness and maybe uncanniness is the core of my visual work.
Good. But I'm curious about which kind of environments these things grow. What's that inception of an idea? I think with what you're doing, from what I see, Ada, I think because there's no rules in a way, you can go where you want to go. Now, if you look at habitat, you look at terrestrial habitat, gravity plays a huge role in the growth and mutation of species.
Yes.
Right? So there's things, they say that nature itself is just adaptation to atmospheric conditions. And nothing really accelerates. Evolution goes at a glacial speed. And then along comes somebody like Ada, and she just lets rip and just goes into this other world. But I don't know if it's the algorithm feeding this to me, but literally 2 days ago, I was looking at species that they found on the deep ocean floor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't even begin to think that what you and I do is strange. I mean, these things are unreal, okay? And I don't know what's guiding their being or their growth. It must be the environment to some degree, okay? But there seems to be something more than that. Like, how come nature puts a light into a fish? I mean, how do you create that light? I mean, this is deeply, deeply artificial. And that's why I think the rules of study for things like biomimicry, or just trying to get a kind of an immediate intuitive understanding of natural phenomena, and then you pass it through the human. I mean, if you pass it through the human's mind and imagination, is that a predictive analysis of something that could exist?
Yes.
Is the human mind accelerating this immense growth that we're kind of in need of? And certainly at the time in which we live, I mean, the last 3 years have been phenomenal. I mean, in terms of how we create and why we create. So I get it. I love those overlaps. I mean, sometimes it's better to have something proposed that's really emotive and stimulating than something made which is dull and monotonous and boring. Very hard to replicate in the real world the kind of broad-based imagination that we have. Things often look flat and dull when you see them in reality, because your mind has seen them often very digitally on a screen with amazing light and feeling. And then the thing comes into reality and you go, oh, doesn't really happen with nature as such. I'm not sure if we're disappointed by nature. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, but also I think our imagination has its own borders, because we tend to imagine things based on what we know already or what we saw. And there is also one type of alien that is like so popular, for example, but we can't really imagine what kind of different beings are, if they are in cosmos, for example, because this is not something that we already know, or it's based on our knowledge. So that's very interesting that you are talking about the depths of the ocean, because it's also not explored space, and it's here. So very curious what next years will also bring in terms of research about that.
Well, if you bring it back to the human, in my discussions with scientists that I talked to in America related to it was the recent space program with the spacewalk that you might have all seen. It was a commercial civilian flight, and it was pretty impressive. But, I've been talking to scientists over there, and I, in doing that, talking about how our bodies mutate in space. Can we give birth in space? What happens in microgravity to your bones, your eyes, and all of these things? And it sounds strange, because I have an interest in ufology and potential alien species. I'm really interested in all the physics and everything that surrounds that. And I think it will come. I mean, I'm not a weird guy, but I think that's going to come. So if you run a sequence on the human, you get these images of these humans that you see, actually. If you're not going to speak and you're communicating through telekinesis, you don't use your mouth, so your mouth disappears. So you don't wear clothes because you don't need clothes, and you start to work it all out. You actually get some of these species, if you like, of future humans that we've known for a long time. So I find that fascinating, don't you? That you could almost run that. If you ran that through a really, really advanced AGI system in the next few years, it will give you a solution. So there's going to be more discoveries, and I think if we do discover any of that, where our future self or past future self is more, like a praying mantis than it is a human, I think the general public will expect that life around us becomes really quite radical and interesting.
Ada, what do you think? Do you see a similar future coming?
So yeah, I don't want to be an extremist utopist, but I actually I am huge solar punk admirer, and I really do hope that something will shift, because where it's right now going, I can't see us as species surviving. So I really do hope that we will wake up and be more sustainable and maybe just careful with what we are doing in this on this planet. And yeah, it also goes with kind of political views and everything that is anti-hierarchical and maybe community-based. But yeah, I know it's kind of distant theme, but this is the only one thing that is like keeping me sane.
So for those who don't know what solar punk is, will you describe it? No problem.
Sure. So this is like much more bright sister of cyberpunk, and cyberpunk is a dystopia, and solarpunk is about being sustainable, about pro crafts, about pro art, and about small communities. And as I said before, it's anti-hierarchical. So everything is happening by vote in those small communities, and machines are low tech, and they should support our daily life, not overtake over us. And this is pretty new movement and created in 2009 on Tumblr, actually. It is been born. So comparing to cyberpunk, it's younger, and yeah, it's something that I truly believe in.
Well, the sun is God, you know. I mean, it's interesting when people talk to me about religion, partly because I'm here in Dubai, and there is a sense of neutrality here, even if, you know, this is part of the Arab world. And you look for a common denominator through everything. I mean, and I mean everything. I mean, the creative world. You look for, or me, I look for. I'm in a conversation, and I'm starting up here with people, but I want to know how you open the door. You understand me? Like the first things. It's like no sun, no life. It's as simple as that. So solar punk is very interesting, and also you're living in a country which I think is perfect for what you're doing. My son Roman always said to me, or used to say to me, you know, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you trying to invent things that don't exist? Or, you know, can't you work with something that exists? You could just always next step. Why are you trying to imagine the convergence of something new? Mm-hmm. He says, look, don't you feel that, you know, you need to cut the wood, put it in a basket, go in the home, put it on the fire and warm yourself? And I said, well, why? He said, because you can. And I think this is the dilemma of life at the moment, is that it's really fight or flight with what it's what we're facing in terms of the unknown, you know. And it's okay if you've had a long run at this. You know, I've had a long run at this, and I've gone analog, digital, and now I'm fiddling around with AI and AGI and trying to understand how I deal with emotional intelligence within that framework, so that I can at least own part of it as it's given away. So I don't know. I just think there are new tools out there. There are new tools which allow us to look at things a different way, and there are new tools which mean we don't really need to get a result in an age where it's become very visual, and maybe it's going to become even more like VR in a sense, where you're detached. So you got the detachment aspect, which is like another world. I mean, wow. But then equally, when you come out of that other world, you need to smell wet grass, and you need to go near a fire and sit around it and talk, because it's paganistic. There's something absolutely rooted in the depths of humanity, you know, the way a piece of meat might burn. I don't know. I'm just the opposite of this very remote, distant technology. Wonderful thing about the Earth as we know it, the natural side of the Earth, is that you don't switch it off. Yeah, there's night and day, there's hot and cold, there's everything. The sea goes out, the sea comes in. But, you know, I can turn this computer off now, and that's the end of whatever we're talking about. So it's very much on-off kind of way of dealing with it. But I don't know about you, Ada, but it sounds to me like you also need opposites in your life. Yeah?
Yes. I think we're living in an era of oversaturation by technology. So then the more technology I use, the more I need to spend time in nature, actually, to feel again as a human. So that's kind of really interesting for me. And I also know that you are still doing your drawings just the way I'm doing them, with the pencil, with my blank page. And I'm really cultivating that, because I think crafts in general in the future will be a luxury. And also the time when you are focused on just one thing is precious, because we are all the time, every time I'm working, even I have 3 messengers open, and I don't know, notifications are coming from my emails, and I feel so distracted. And when I'm drawing, I'm just focused on one thing. And also, that's another thing, but I'm just assuming with to what you said about virtual reality, that if the Google right now launched the new smart glasses, later they might be replaced by eye contacts, and later by eye chips, and then all the corporations can mask what to show us, or show us additional things that we didn't knew that can even exist, or even send advertisements straight into our vision. And if we want to pay, I don't know, special subscription to pristine reality. And it's kind of crazy, but it's not impossible looking when we are heading. So, yeah.
Completely right. And I think one of the issues is what man thinks ultimately becomes reality. And I love that on the one side. I mean, that's very much a sort of Steve Jobs mission, throw a device into the fish tank and there's bubbles coming out and say, there's air in it, take it out. I mean, there's a sort of very direct way of dealing with advancing things. And, but, there's also this thing where if we went out now in LA, in Warsaw, in Dubai, in Amsterdam, and ask people if they would wear contact lenses so that they could get 24/7 advertising. I mean, I think there'd be a lot of deaths on the street, because I think we're already our ability to absorb information is pretty vast, I think, but on our terms. And I think we're facing an unusual future where it's not really on our terms. If you think about controlled digital currencies, they're on the horizon now. It's all that they're talking about. Universal wage, because nobody will work. I mean, part of me needs to think about that, but part of me is not interested at all, because it's going to spoil my day. It's like, how far can you just go in the solar sense, in the utopian sense? But because I think the creative realm, creative people are predominantly optimistic. I think they're people who are really free and helpful in the way that they touch us. They touch us deep with things which might not make sense, but they do make sense. They always say that, art is the ultimate salvation. When you hit a brick wall, it's a bit like a religion. When you can't work it out, you turn to something. And I think how to incorporate that in the work we do, so that there's this sort of beautiful curiosity and kind of growth in these things. I mean, it's very hard to find clients who want that, because
that's true.
They don't sell. So it becomes a bit of a do-it-yourself society. But I think if you start to put additive technologies together, where, holograms that can actually bring what you do, Ada, to some form of life, so that you can, in an ABBA concert kind of way, you can interact with things, especially if you've got biofeedbacks and that kind of thing. But all of that, of course, is taking us away from the walk in the forest. Yeah. What is it better? I don't know. Is it inevitable? Yes. Strangely, not through our choice, but through choice of people mainly on West Coast America.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe in China.
Well, yeah, they're not telling us about it, though, are they?
Yeah, but also another just observation about everything that we're talking about right now. Like in last few years, I'm reading a lot of sci-fi, including Polish sci-fi. But one of my favorite book is Dune. I mean, not book, but a series. And basically, Dune is happening after the AI revolution. So after the AI is forbidden, and the same, there are a few like Foundation. I think also it's after the robots are forbidden, and this is extremely interesting concept for me because right now we're peeking into a whole AI world, but I guess there will be a point when it all will collapse, and it will be us, all those writers, then creating words, and we'll be living in AI-free world. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when you talk about Dune, I think it creates new layers of sophistication. I'm interested in sophistication, right? How you want to define that, I think, is different between people. But rarity, sophistication. But also there's another thing in there, which is the potential to live off-grid, but live off-grid in the most sophisticated way, right? Where maybe the clothes you wear are not important in a tribal setting. You know, they're more tribal than they are fashion tribal, if you see what I mean. You just kind of go a bit homemade in the way that you make it up with your tribe. That's what, for me, Dune kind of promotes. I have difficulty with some of the technology because they always exaggerate scale, and I have no idea how the hell you build those things. So the general, anything to do with science fiction, it interests me. I mean, and I'm one of the designers that has had some of the most of my objects in science fiction movies, and for me, it's I mean, that's better than winning, I don't know, being made a Sir or something. I think it's just really great to see, you know, something that's there on a spaceship or you know, Starship Enterprise or whatever it's been on. And in a way, you can almost design for that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a few years ago, I was working on a television for LG in Seoul, and it was going well. I was looking at 3D printing, and it was really interesting. And with somebody called Arturo Tedeschi, who was the main, the father of Grasshopper. He's amazing. And it was going well. And then we watched the science fiction movie, and my wife, Ela, said, oh, why don't you design something that would fit in that movie? And the thing that came out of that was incredible. I mean, and worked. Yeah. So it's like, wow. So I think it's what you're plugging in, really.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious that what plugs into your mind, because you're out there. You know, you're really out there. I mean, it's like you could have these things as screensavers, and you wouldn't know where you were. What is fueling that mind of yours, that creative mind of yours?
Thank you for asking that. I mean, so actually, I became a visual artist because of the Dune, because Polish version of Dune has illustrations of Wojciech Siódmak. This is, in my humble opinion, the best fantasy and sci-fi illustrator. And I've been so inspired by his drawings that I wanted to copy them. And that's how I started to draw, actually. So, yeah, I might say that I became an artist because of the Dune, and that's probably why I have so much love towards this book. But today, what is driving me is just the deep love to the nature, and I think nature is much more sophisticated than any kind of machine or any kind of device that we can come up with. Because once you get deeply into the whole systems that nature is building and how all animals are functioning, this is so fascinating for me, because it haven't been created in the last I don't know, 1,000 years. It's been created from million years, and it's still surviving and evolving and adapting. So, I think just my deep love towards the nature, and always I'm trying to implement my emotions into my personal work, but that's kind of on different side of the things. But yeah, just to sum up, I think my fascination with nature and with new technologies, maybe.
And Ross,
but I see that
something like that in your childhood that provoked you to start making things?
the Ada.
No, Ross.
No, Ross.
Oh, me.
Me. Dune was one of the provocations.
I was fully into what Ada was talking about. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I'll give you a few examples, okay? You work with what you've got, right? But of course, if you don't know there's a wider world, you go inward, right? And I think the thing that maybe Ada and I share, even if there's a lapse in time, is that I wasn't brought up in New York or any buzzy kind of city, right? It was quite the opposite. I was in a small house with 4 kids. It was so intense, and I was outside all the time just for my sanity. I go out at 8, I come back at 8, and so I was just finding my way. And this would be out in nature, and so you'd be in a forest, and you'd be trying to understand this relationship between everything that you see. How a tree grows, what are these shapes? I mean, how are they made? Whatever's going on there. And then by the coast, where I come from, one of the oldest revealed coastlines in the world, with the second highest and lowest tide in the world. So after Mindanao, it's in South Wales. It's in a place called Penarth. And of course, it was not cool, by the way, to kind of hang out at the beach with brown water, because it's brown water, and pebbles, and nobody, and this incredible coastline. But for me, it fueled my imagination. I mean, the fact that every pebble that you picked up fitted your hand. And it's not because the pebble fits your hand, it's that you fit it. So what I would do is I would spray them silver. I mean, I didn't even do anything. I mean, just like, wow, you know what I mean? And I was just with Kan Yasuda, the greatest living sculptor from Japan in Carrara. And I said, oh, Kan-san, how do you work? And he was the assistant of Mr. Monoguchi. And he said, oh, I close my eyes. I mean, wow. So there's, on the one hand, we're talking about deep analog. I mean, like, it couldn't get more kind of direct than that. But another thing which was really important for me is the fact that dealing with ideas, dealing with creativity, and not coveting that, like, hey, that's mine. You've got to be able to give it out. So we used to have bags. This is so interesting. I mean, we used to have bags of wood for the fire delivered in those lovely brown bags you get like in New York, but big. Okay, they were brand new. I remember thinking, with the blanket stitch, how great the bags were. And I was maybe 6 or 7, right? And the bags were as big as me. But these were offcut from a furniture company, right? And I used to hammer them together with big nails and a hammer. And I used to make these things, right? Like triangular blocks of mahogany with a thing and a whatever it was. And, pointing them at people like I was they looked like the Incredible Hulk, these things. And then at the end of the day, my father used to put it on the fire. So I would create, it would go. I would create, it would go. So now I'm limitless. Try me. You can tap me on the shoulder, and I'm so full of thoughts, for things. But I'm not. If I see something similar, which I just saw last week at the AADRL unit in London, where I'm kind of support them. And it was, I did a thing for the metaverse with Patrick Schumacher. And it was this thing that goes in the sky, and it's like a sky gallery. I mean, the student had almost copied it one for one. And I went, well, whoa. And I thought it was great because I never got to make a model. They did. So I suddenly see an idea coming to realization, and the fact that, across the world or whatever, people are sharing ideas and using those ideas, and, they become your tribe. So I don't think I think we're in an age where it's not really about like individual star designers. It's about a language, maybe, an aesthetic. But it's a great time to actually collaborate, because you really don't know what you're going to come up with. So that's a different thing. So when I was a kid, I collaborated with whatever was available, nature, very directly. I never lost that wonder of why the water's brown and not, Maldives blue. But when you go to the Maldives, you suddenly realize how lucky you are, if you can. So it's not what you think it is. You've got to adjust your mind to see beauty in everything. When you see beauty in everything, you become a bit kind of hippie, but you also at the same time give everything a chance. You become less critical, because you let it go. You go, oh, why? And I have a lot of that with what you do, Ada. I mean, like, why? How is that applied? Do you blow that up big on the side of a building and you just blow people's minds? Or is it a nighttime phenomenon? Or do you, like one of my students from the AA recently, he's putting screens in Kew Gardens in London with these virtual trees. I mean, they are so beautiful. I mean, it makes you look at nature a different way, okay, where you have the artificial and the natural adjacent.
Yeah. I actually just wanted to ask Ross how you are implementing new medias into your work, because I know a few years ago you did these chairs with the code, when the code is deciding what to remove from the chair, but not right now with everything that is happening with AI. How does it work for you?
Well, that's a really lovely story, that one, because this is my own private research. I used to run my studio, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about that with Emily. I do almost 50-50 speculative research. Otherwise, you just don't make any progress. The client's not going to make you progress. I mean, that's just a deliverable. So I would do a lot of that. So I worked on a series called Coralizations, where I was trying to make the most minimum chair possible with the spine and like 3 legs, and then run it through a program which basically coralized it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I'm working with one of my top people, and then I'd have these things 3D printed by Materialize in Belgium in alumite. They're beautiful things. I mean, wow, this thing would arrive. And then I'd look at the leg, and the leg was about to break, okay? Because of glitches that this program was delivering, right? So I'd look at it and I'd think, well, no, that's nature. I don't interfere with that. You got to let the lion kill the gazelle, right? Because you can't interfere really with that. So what we do is we make little prosthetics that we would glue on that are obviously different than the print. And ironically, when these were acquired by the Centre Pompidou for their permanent collection, and the one they loved was the one with the biggest glitch. So no asymmetry, because actually there is almost no asymmetry in nature. It's very subtle, by the way, the changes, when you flip with your eyes. But these things were just doing whatever they need to do, right? And you don't touch, because if you do, that's design. And this is where I think design will go. I don't think design will be design. I think it will be run through a series of coding or sequences. And then you will maybe select. And it's the selection process, which is an unnatural selection in a Darwinian way. The creative will select. I mean, how interesting is that? I mean, that reinvents the whole idea of taste and, wow, beauty.
Ada, that's the future of design. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that resonates with me. as I've been saying, I'm reading a lot of sci-fi lately, especially this year for me is about Stanisław Lem. And in one of his books, he created a planet where actually all furniture is growing almost like plants because they needed to develop that. And I think it might become at some point true because we already do have 3D printers that can grow. I mean, not literally, but almost grow things. And why not to grow our designs from the ground and let it be a little bit more organic, as Ross said, and have natural selection of them. Why not? That sounds really fascinating to me.
Yeah, and it's funny. This is why the tools of your time or the tools of your operation are very important, I think, because we now have a collaboration with digital tools, which we didn't have before. And way in the past, I mean, this is super interesting. Way in the past, car designers like Giuseppe Giugiaro or the greats, they could draw. In the past, everybody could draw, because that was their medium, right? You see these, you can buy them. You can buy these drawings of people botanists who went somewhere 250 years ago, and their drawings are incredible. Look at the drawings of Stoppani, Paleontologia de Lombardia, which I bought in Amsterdam, as a matter of fact. Incredible drawings. And nobody talks about them. But at that time, you had to develop this incredible skill base to communicate, right? And that took time. When Darwin went on the Beagle, I mean, when he ran out of paper, he didn't go to a fax machine and take out a sheet of white paper and scribble on it. I mean, everything was precious. So Michelangelo, a sheet of paper in Michelangelo's time was incredibly valuable. And yet you see the way they draw. They draw with the greatest confidence of anybody I've ever seen. Study Leonardo's drawings. There's no mistake. And yet the paper was probably like a Rolex or something. It was ridiculous, So I'm curious in that, and especially if you bring that up to date, where we have these incredible programs and tools which are evolving that can create things that blow your mind. I mean, it literally blow your mind. I mean, you get so high from the interface with the imagery that can be produced today that I'm hoping that does not result in a disappointment for people, because that's not what they can have. I just very quickly, I just did an interview about supercars because I might be doing something with supercars, and this came out, the fact that companies build concept cars, which everybody go, oh my God, that's wow, I want. But then they get the Volkswagen Polo or Golf, which, we know that, or a Zook from Poland. I don't know if they still make them, but there's that Trabant. So it's that thing where, what is it? I think the division between maybe design and art is the power of seduction. So I think with art, you can really push boundaries in an incredible way. But if you put art into design, it lifts art, it lifts design. It becomes really, like the greats, like your Gaetano Pesces or your Cellini's or people from the past that were avant-garde. I think design needs art in it to some degree, but also maybe art needs design, because you need to have a kind of visual awareness and placement and the moment to crop or that's a considered thing. That's not digital. That's a kind of emotional reaction to something. I don't know if when you're working, you probably don't even know what you're looking for. You probably just start. Do you? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd be curious to know.
Okay, should I start?
Yes.
Okay. This is something that I also wanted to touch onto, because with AI, I still feel like we don't have much control. And I like Ross' point that it will be natural selection, because even if you're generating a lot of images through, I don't know, For example, Midjourney, you need to choose the one that you like. So it is like a natural selection. But for me in 3D, I have full control of what I'm doing, and I have full control over every small detail and element on my scene, because it's basically like world building or environment building, and I have control over the lighting, the direction, the temperature of the light, how many trees are there, what those trees leaves are, and absolutely everything. And in AI, even if you will write very good prompt, it will never produce something that you really, really wanted. So for me, as I'm right now experimenting a lot with AI, it's just the matter of patience, I would say, because it's extremely hard for me to let go of the control that I do have in 3D. So that's an interesting point. And obviously, I have at the beginning of each of my works or each of my projects, I do have vision what I want, because I need to prepare animals that will be shown in those scenes or the plants. So there needs to be some kind of direction of all of that. And later on, I'm just fixing the composition, fixing the lighting, fixing camera movement, and everything that my works are including. But those are small tweaks. I need to have some vision at the very beginning of my work.
So, but do you ever create like a mood board as such now? Is that something that you do? You because that seems like an old thing now. That seems like an old-fashioned idea. It's student-y, maybe, whereas if you do know, you have a destination. I think all the greats, and that anybody from Marina Abramovich through to anybody, I think they have such power of concept. All the great architects, all the great artists, they have this power of concept that Richard Serra, get out of my way. It's not what I do. Thoughts, but my God, you feel it. So I don't know. It's just, do you think that way? You think, right, this is, oh, great. That's what I was trying to achieve, or that's where I'm heading. And, because I'm very curious of that moment when things stop. They stop growing, right? Elephants stop growing, whales stop growing, everything stops growing.
Right. How do you know when you're finished? I would love to hear from both of you how you know when you're finished with
because
something.
it's also very interesting in Ross' process. But with me, it's finished with obviously 3D file. Because once I do have a vision, I can create it, but it can look a little bit different. Or as I've been saying, like I can tweak little things that I think will look better. And also, once it's coming to my own personal works, I'm never releasing those before a few months. They are sitting with me and they are growing with me, and I need breaks from it. And then I'm coming back and I want to change some more elements. But there is this, I think, level that I'm reaching, and I'm just saying to myself that I need to stop fixing it, because otherwise I will go, I don't know, crazy. And in 3D you can fix everything 1,000 times. So that's pretty problematic. So as I'm saying, I just build it myself, routine, or like, I don't know how to call it in any other way, but just a level when my works are reaching that I'm pretty happy with, and then I can release it, because otherwise it would take, like, I don't know, probably three years to finish one animation, and that's not my goal to be true. Yeah. Ross, how about you? Because that's very interesting for me as well.
Well, Ada is working purely digitally, as I see it. Okay, so you end up as a 3D file, right? So I don't touch computers. I'll touch this, but that's it. I'm not born for that. I think they're ridiculous. I am not going to press a square key to do what I do. And I'll go to my grave saying that. But in the interim, I'll try and work out with Bas and a few other people that I'm talking to right now, if there's a way to create which is as natural as my diction, as the way I speak. Okay, because I evolve my speech. Not, you might not be feeling it now, but that's what I do, and I write. I write like David Bowie in order to break the mold. I write stupid things that would just come out because I'm trying to break the mold, because I'm not a premeditated, predictive guy. And I can't stand it. I can look at a piece of design and I'll turn away like that because I feel that it's so pretentiously calculated. I don't want that. And I don't like that in people. I don't like that in anything. And I think what's interesting about the general, large language models and the way we can pull in a lot of references and information, everything, is that will create complexity in whichever way you want that, right? And so that and I've been banging on about complexity for years, okay? And people look at me thinking, you'll never work, you'll never get another job because you don't say that to clients, right? I'm going to make this as complex as possible, whatever. Because everybody's going on about, minimalism. And, it's still there. It's still very rife, certainly in the design world, which I am part of, but I'm not. Because I don't like design. I don't like the motivation of it. Okay? So that's why I mess around with it. But I still survive. I'm still here, whatever it is. And I like to know that you can throw my work on the table and you don't know how to date it. But then if you do, you can carbon date it, plus or minus maybe 2 years. So it's wholeheartedly contemporary. Okay? So the question is, I think, how do you know what you're doing? How do you know when you're finished?
How do you know when you're finished? How do you know when you're finished?
Yeah.
Is the question.
How do you know when you're finished? I mean, if I'm working on my drawings, and I work on various scale drawings regularly, I don't know when it's finished. I'm like, I'll leave it for a month or two, and then I'll go, oh my goodness, no, and I'll go again. You can't do that really with the design process because you're in a channel, and you've got to get a result. That's why I think the idea of, I presented an idea at my second TED Talk, which was called Lovegrove Genesis. And it was the idea that you don't design anything, that you feed all the information in that you can find about a particular subject. And it will give you a solution which is minimum material drawdown, minimum resources, minimum energy use, minimum everything, but maximum things, right? And then if you need variation in a Darwinian sense, you ask a designer, Grichich or whoever it is, and you say, give me a little bit of you, give me a little bit of that. And that's what creates the Finch-like diversity, because the common singular element, if that's to fit an evolving biosphere, which is under threat from the way we use resources, and which it was 51.6 degrees here yesterday, okay? So it's all right talking about this, but talk about fight or flight. I mean, this is a serious thing, right? So it's like, certainly the hard three-dimensional things that I work on, they have an underlying responsibility, which has nothing to do with me. They have to be run not through a human mind, but a really thoughtful, artificial mind, and then bring it back into the human. Maybe that doesn't apply so much to, say, fashion, in a Alexander McQueen way, but it certainly, I think, resonates to a brave new world that is making a lot of stuff and profiteering from it. I gave that talk in, I think it was 2013. Even the word algorithm, I think, didn't exist back then. I remember, but it was just this natural feeling, Emily, that needs to come in an altruistic way, not a selfish way. But very briefly, the last thing I just finished literally was in Carrara. I made a sculpture called Ridon, which is an anagram of Rodin. And how do you know when it's finished, right? Because it's built by a robotic arm, right? You see the lines of it being built. It's so beautiful, right? But it's not finished, right? And they all say, no, it's not finished. Don't touch. It's not finished. And then you come back the next day, and it's different, but it still looks good. But it's not finished. And I'm not allowed to say it's finished, because it's only finished when it's smooth. And I do that, okay? And I was wrong. When it's finished, it's so beautiful because the material works with its form, that I was wrong to get all excited about the earlier variants. You understand me? So I would love to build 10, but I can't. I'd love to see the morphogenesis of something, because the morphogenesis actually becomes a singular one thing. Yeah, that's what I think. It's not like imperfection or glitch or mutation is a stunningly beautiful thing if you're allowed to let it run. But in this case, I was not. But I was wrong. So yes, it's finished when it's finished, because it looks like the computer rendering, because that's what people want. Right? So that. But if I had more time, I'd just go to the keypad on the robot and just mess it up. You know what I mean? Who knows? But that's why I think reading is very good. Sorry, Emily, just one thing that I add is this is why a dialogue between, the digital virtual world and the three-dimensional world is so interesting. And I say that with your own work, because I think that if you could pull out and print like a Frank Stella parts of things that you do, that you could hold in your hand and take a look at, I think it would add a whole new dimension. It'd be really amazing from the data that you. That's
just recently, in last few months, I started to play with 3D printing, but I just started, so it gives me so much joy to see some of my objects and designs in real life and much more tangible. It's completely different feeling than to see them constantly on the screens. So it's interesting path for me, I would say. Yeah, definitely something that I would love to explore much more.
I think that
the same is true for me in reverse.
For us to wrap up, to finish with finishing, I want to thank both of you for an amazing conversation and so much wisdom. And it really gave me a lot to reflect on in terms of process. And I think everyone will really appreciate hearing your insights. So thank you so much.